Ben Dulaney, and I'm going to be teaching you the science of anger and how it affects us all. So by the end of the presentation, I want you guys to be able to understand the psychological impacts of anger and its connection to the fight or flight response. One, they go very similar. And I want you also to understand the brain chemistry and the anatomy of anger. I've chosen to do my presentation kind of split. I want to be looking at first the psychological perspective, the reasoning, the connections. When you see angers, the triggers, when you see someone who's angry, the triggers that cause that kind of thing. And then the chemical section will be towards the end, and we're going to be looking at what are the chemical connections going on in the brain, what is causing you to feel those kinds of things. So, to start off, I want you guys to write down on your boards 5 ideas about anger. What society feel about anger, personal experiences with anger, how does it feel, what is causing it, just 5 ideas.
How does it feel?
We got adrenaline, needs to be managed, irrational, discouraged, and violence.
Do you think anger is irrational?
It causes people to be irrational. It's usually brought up because of something, so it's usually a rational response to something that creates irrational responses. It's a cause and effect thing.
Yeah. So I just want to hear like one response from each group, so you guys can all kind of give responses. Just back there.
So one thing that we've said is that a lot of times, like, anger is linked to like men in society. Like a lot of people say that, oh, like men are like get angry, like whereas like women don't, like that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a stereotype. So we're going to be going into psychological. What makes you angry? Why? So now we're going to keep coming back to this. It's a school fight analogy. So for this, I just kind of want you guys to imagine that you're a student, you're just walking down the hall. It's a normal day. And all of a sudden, as you kind of approach a doorway, there's 2 boys, 2 teens that come out of the doorway, and they're very aggressive. They're fighting with each other, they wrestle each other to the ground. It's a very aggressive situation. And in that very moment, that's when the fight or flight response is triggered. And so I'm going to be showing the connection between this fight or flight response and the anger response. So the fight or flight. There's going to be a physical response in the fight or flight. Increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, a burst of energy, a feeling of empowerment to take action. That action is going to be to take action towards maybe stopping the fight or avoiding the fight and going and seeking teaching. So now a little bit of background on anger. As some of you guys mentioned, anger is a substitute emotion. It's going to be caused from something, some sort of pain that you're feeling. It's an innate human response to an emotional or physical attack. The definition of anger is going to be a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. It always has a focus in direction. As I mentioned last time, there's some kind of focus. You know, you're not just angry at everything, you're angry at something. And thinking about what makes you angry is going to trigger that emotion of anger. But there's also a strong connection between the fight or flight response. As I mentioned with the fight or flight response, you're going to have increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, feeling of empowerment to action, and a burst of energy. So I want you to make a connection that the fight or flight response is very similar to the anger response. They may be different kind of motives. Like anger has a focus, while the fight or flight response is just happening to you, but they're very similar. And so there's also, we're going to be talking about an increased level of arousal, a higher level of brain activity. So, kind of one of the last questions. Do you think anger is nature or nurture?
I think it's nature, but like we kind of have like similarities as to like why we might think it's this or why we might think that. And it kind of crosses.
So what do you think it's nature?
Well, I was using like my personal experience, but like me and my brother, like he gets angry really easily compared to me, and I don't. But we're pretty much raised like the same way.
Yeah.
So never
I think it's nurtured because like as a child when you're growing up, you take stimulation like that you see and you interpret it and you use it later on.
Yeah.
And that's like the way you're raised. You see things and then that's how you learn to react.
Okay. Yeah, those are very valid. How does the body process anger? Focus points for that is going to be the frontal lobe, which is this general area of the brain, as you saw in the last one, as well as the cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is going to be the foremost point of the frontal lobe. And that's where the majority of the cognitive processing is done. Then we're also going to look at the limbic system, the emotional system. That's this general place here. So the cerebral cortex is going to be processing the information, and then how your body reacts to that is going to be processed through the limbic system. One of the major brain organs that we're going to be looking at is the amygdala. It is the storehouse for the extreme emotions we feel. It's not just like that happy or sad feelings, but it's like extreme feelings of overjoy or extreme feelings of sadness or depression. The amygdala is the prime organ when it comes to the fight or flight response. It's going to be releasing a series of neurotransmitters that we're going to be talking about that does what is called amygdala hijacking. So coming back to the school fight situation. So we know that the trigger for the situation is the two boys fighting, the wrestling, and in that very moment is going to start the cycle of aggression, or the fight or flight response. I'm kind of going to be using those interchangeably. And in that very moment, what process happens is called amygdala hijacking. And essentially what it does is it takes over the normal cognitive process. And in that fight or flight situation, the normal cognitive process is actually too slow, but you're not able to process all that's going on. Your body just reacts. It's an instinct. And it reacts faster than the cortex is able to do, or able to process all the information. It's necessary because if someone is coming and is actually going to attack you, you're not going to sit there and process, oh, is this person trying to talk to me? What are they doing? What are they wearing? You're not going to process any of that. The brain is going to, the body is going to act in self-protection. Neurotransmitters we're going to be talking about are catecholamines. Now that's kind of just that's kind of a grouping for these brain chemicals, and we're going to be talking about noradrenaline. It's not like anti-adrenaline. It's noradrenaline and dopamine, and these are going to increase brain activity, increase brain functionality. We're also going to be talking about the hormone adrenaline. So in this process, in that very moment that you see the fight happening, you feel the desire to take immediate protective action, self-preservation, and while the boys are not physically attacking you, you're still having that trigger. What's going to be happening is your heart rate accelerates, blood pressure rises as the blood is flowing to the extremities. Your breathing increases and your attention narrows. As I was saying, there's going to be increased levels of dopamine and the noradrenaline, so that's going to increase your focus level. You're focusing on one thing. You're not focusing on all the other things around the room. You're focusing on that one thing. And all this can take place in less than 5 seconds. It's an extremely fast process. Adrenaline, that's going to provide lasting energy. It's that burst of energy, and that energy can last for up to 20 minutes after. It's noradrenaline, that's going to increase brain functionality, how much the brain is processing. Because your brain is still processing these things, but it's acting on instinct. And then there's going to be dopamine, which is increasing focus on that one object. After all has been said and the fight has stopped, things have cooled down, you have a cool down period after the initial fight or flight response. So some of the after effects of that are going to be, you're going to have still a boost of energy, you're going to have increased arousal, the brain is working on a higher level, and you're going to have higher brain functionality. And a lot of these things can be very addictive. A PhD at the University of Groningen, what he did is he exposed lab rats to aggressive situations through positive reinforcement over weaker rodents. Over time, they gradually began to show signs of increased aggression. They were able to see that these rats were becoming more aggressive over time. So this kind of shows there's a connection. Anger is influential. It's something that we all feel, and if you're in those situations all the time, you're gradually going to become more aggressive. Okay, I just want to bring up one thing that one of the groups was talking about, and how kind of why anger is so addictive. So one of the ideas is that adrenaline feels good. People who do like the crazy adrenaline junkies who jump out of planes and stuff, they do it again and again and again because it's a rush. They like to feel that way, so they do it again because they want to feel that way again. And what if you didn't have to jump out of the plane to get that rush? What if for you, getting angry at something gave you that same kind of rush, that same kind of feeling as jumping out of the plane. And so you don't have to jump out of the plane, you just have to get angry. So when we try to be in angry situations more often just to feel that way, it's a scapegoat essentially. That maybe someone has some sort of inner pain that they're all feeling, but they don't want to feel that anymore, so they get angry to avoid it, and they get an adrenaline rush either way. And so they're avoiding the pain, and as a result, it hurts other people. Anger is something that affects us all, and it's something that we all feel. And so the question is how we control that, and how we use that as motivation or as harming others.